Thank you all for joining in. This is yakobako. Today I'm going to talk about my attempted through hike of the Continental Divide Trail. The journey all started on March 23rd. It was probably about 10:30 by the time we even started hiking. We left from the Love's travel station in Comfort, Texas, and headed to it was kind of like an access road that ran alongside I-10 heading towards Kerrville, but it was a slight shorter path by a few miles, so we decided to take that route. We ended up being on that road all the next day, and we got into Kerrville. It was myself, my companion Nadis, and my buddy Justin. The first night we ended up hiking maybe about 5 to 7 miles, and we stopped off at a spot on the side of a ranch that had a drainage ditch, and there was a pretty flat area right above the ditch of concrete, so we both just camped out in that area. The next day we woke up pretty early. We just ate some snacks for breakfast, headed on towards Kerrville. We actually made it into Kerrville that afternoon by, I want to say, about 6:30, 7 o'clock to our camping spot. We were in Kerrville by maybe about 5. We had stopped off at a store, bought a couple of things, and then kind of hiked around, found a spot, and called it good for the night. We set up camp, and the next day we kind of just hung out around Kerrville. We had planned on staying there for a few days just to rest up. The first day and a half was pretty rough. My buddy ended up getting some pretty bad blisters on his feet, and Nadis as well. His feet were getting a little torn up because he was just pulling me for the first day and a half and wasn't really being very obedient, wasn't wanting to listen. So that kind of backfired in the end. From there, we kind of, like I said, we hung out in Kerrville all the next day. My girlfriend Kat actually came to the Walmart and scooped us up from there. She brought us some snacks, some beer and water and stuff like that, bought us a couple packs of cigarettes, and then we drove maybe 4 miles up the street into the outskirts of Ingram, which is basically still Kerrville. We drove over to Ingram. We found Ingram City Park, and we hung out there for a few hours, set up camp, let the sun go down. I ended up digging a hole off to the side of the little creek that passes through there, creek, river, I'm not sure which one it was. There's a river nearby, and then there's a creek. I think we were on the creek. But anyways, so I dug a water hole next to that so that we would have some clean water to filter through instead of having to, fight the animals and the nastiness and all that stuff. Overall, the water was pretty clean. We both did go swimming in there to kind of clean up because it was pretty hot the first day and a half, so we were sweating pretty bad when we got into Kerrville, so that was pretty nice to take a cool dip in and get all cleaned up before heading on. Kat stayed with us until right before the sun got down, and then she drove back home to San Antonio. From there, we camped out in that spot at Ingram City Park. We woke up in the morning and headed up a alternate highway that was basically right next to the park, and that took us towards Mountain Home, Texas. We stopped off at a Whataburger in the morning to see if we can get food. And this was like right when Texas had started shutting down the fast food joints and stuff for inside, so we didn't have a car. And eventually they had come to tell us that we could have ordered it online and stood out by the drive up, and they would have brought us the food. But what we did was basically walk through the drive-through. They were pretty cool about it. They let us order the food, and then they just had us wait in the front. We got our food, but the cool thing about it was right when we were ordering our food, this lady came up and gave us $15, so that basically paid for our breakfast. We both ate pretty good. Nadis got some fries and some of my burger out of it, and we hung out there, let our food go down for a while. Then we ended up hiking towards Mountain Home again. Maybe like 5 miles in, this gentleman pulls over and tells us that he was coming back in town, that he lived in the area, and he was telling us that he was about to stop by Whataburger and get some food, so he'd bring us some. I'm not going to say no to food. It doesn't matter how soon it was. It doesn't matter how recently I had just eaten. I mean, I'll eat. So he comes back like 30 minutes later. We had made it a couple more miles down the road. We're just kind of chilling there. Dude pulls up. He hands us food. He had bought us all, including Nodis. So he had bought 3 burgers, 3 drinks, and 3 things of fries. And I mean, we ate it all. Nodis ate some. He was doing pretty good. We made it, I want to say like 15 miles away from Mountain Home, in between Mountain Home and Ingram, when this nice gentleman picked us up and gave us a ride to his trailer that he had on a piece of property. He offered to give us a bunch of game meat because he said he hunts all the time. We declined because we, of course, were already packed to what we wanted to take, and we didn't need to get a bunch of extra stuff on top of that, especially only a few days in. So we just filled up our waters. At this point, I had 2 1-liter bottles, and I think 2 1-gallons jugs, and I was carrying the 2 1-liters in the little netted side pouch on the side of my Osprey pack, and the other gallons, for a while I was holding one until it got a little lighter, but I basically just strapped them on to my pack, and that did all right for that portion of the trip. So he gave us a ride to his trailer. He let us water up, offered us food, offered us even to stay on his property for as long as we needed until we wanted to get back on the road. But being as it was just a few days in, we were still pumped and ready to go. We ended up leaving his house, and he dropped us off a few more miles up the road, right like bordering Mountain Home. It's not really a town, it's like a 2-horse town, but right there on I-10, where the road that we were on meets I-10. So basically we just decided, let's camp right here. There was a video, I'll link to it up here. We were camping on the side of the highway, and we were getting like bombarded with bugs. There was thousands of spiders. Spiders were mating, so they had their little pouches of little baby spiders running around on their abdomens. There was millions of June bugs, little tiny millipedes. I mean, there was all kinds of bugs out there. And when we got there, it was like such a perfect spot. The only thing was there was some thorny areas, but I mean, it wasn't a big deal. We ended up setting up camp, and right when the sun went down and we started cooking and all that stuff, the bugs just bombarded us. So I was cowboy camping that night at first, but once we got bombarded, I decided to set up my tarp above my buddy Justin's tent so that we can cook and kind of sit around, hang out under there and smoke and all that for a few hours before we decided to go to sleep. And then once he got in his tent, I set it up above my spot in a basic A-frame fashion. Slept pretty good that night. It did get pretty windy. I didn't have any issues with the bugs. I kind of just had to like close my mental image. I just kind of had to close my mind's eye and just imagine that those bugs were not there, because otherwise I would not have slept that night. I ended up sleeping pretty good. We got up, made some breakfast and all that. I think I just ate a couple bars that morning. I was planning on making breakfast, but my buddy woke up a little quicker than me, and he was getting ready to go, and I just kind of wanted to get on the road, so I just grabbed a couple bars, shoved them in my pocket, and ate them along the way. So from Mountain Home, I think we hiked about 5 miles out of Mountain Home. We ended up getting a ride from this lady and her daughter. She said that her daughter had seen us on the road the day before and was curious as to what we were up to, so when they were driving by, they stopped to see what we needed and all that. Ended up giving us a ride to Segovia, to the Route 66 gas station. They even gave us, her mom even gave us, the young lady's mom even gave us both a couple of cigarettes. She bought us some Gatorades and waters, and I hope they subscribed. I told them about the channel. Anyone who helps us out, gave us any trail magic along the way or anything like that, I like to tell them what we're doing, that we were documenting our journey to the Continental Divide and beyond. and a lot of people seemed interested when they were helping us, so I thought I might as well tell them about it and see if they'll be interested in watching what we have to offer. So from there, we walked basically the next day and a half to Junction, Texas. We camped out maybe 3 miles outside of Junction, and we camped at a picnic area. There's another video where you see me talking about several of the items that I use while camping, along with showing my tarp setup for that night. I basically just did it on the picnic area where the benches and the walls were, because we had a chance of rain that night, and I figured I might as well stay on the concrete if I can. So I did that. It was pretty comfortable. We did get rained on, and unfortunately where the opening in the wall was, the only spot where water could get in, the water did get in because it was so windy that it just basically blew in. And I didn't get us soaked. Luckily I woke up to feel a little bit of water. I was basically sleeping in my clothes that night. It wasn't that cold, so Nadas was just laying on the sleeping bag. I was just chilling. I usually just sleep like this, or just pretty much like a mummy. And I wake up to feeling a couple of raindrops on my face, and hop up real quick, turn on my light, and their puddle of water had come up under onto the concrete pad, but only like 2 or 3 feet in, and we were tucked away up against the corner of the walls to keep us dry. So I basically just scooted everything another 2 feet back, went back to sleep, woke up in the morning at like 6:30, and everything was perfectly dry. Got to see the sunrise that morning, get up. I actually, when we got to the outskirts of Junction, we had actually just ran out of water, and there was a small gas station a mile away. So wanting to have water for the morning and be able to rehydrate and everything throughout the night, I decided to run up the road a mile to that gas station. I jogged to the gas station and then kind of speed walked on my way back. Got 2 gallons of water from there, and then we were pretty good from there. So now I have 4-gallon jugs that I have attached to my backpack, along with the 2 liters, and then my buddy had his water and stuff like that. So we get into Junction the next day. I believe he had one of the gallons in his thermos, and I had a kind of full gallon on my pack. So we still had pretty good water. We got into town, and I was trying to edit some video, and my phone started messing up. I was trying to create the video and upload it and all that stuff while I was in town and had a good signal, just to get the data off of my phone and into the cloud to where I can start with new video. My whole basic process is I have to shoot the video, then I have to edit the video, and then I have to save the video to whatever social media, upload it to that social media. Once it's uploaded, I save it to the cloud using Dropbox or Google Drive, whichever one I have room in, I can't remember. Using Dropbox or Google Drive, I'll upload that stuff to the cloud and then delete it off of my phone. Now I started having issues because my phone was not deleting the stuff. It was deleting it, but it was staying in a folder called recently deleted, and even if I deleted it from that folder, it was still popping up on my phone. So it was kind of a whole mess. And not only that, but my charging box all of a sudden decided it wasn't going to work. We had just used it an hour ago before we walked into Junction at the picnic area when we were both charging our phones in the morning, and it was working fine. Then all of a sudden, 2 miles down the road, it's not working. It wasn't even turning on. So I was kind of getting ready to cut ties with it. I decided to walk up the road to a gas station that had a plug, plugged it in. It turned on, thankfully, because we needed that thing for the trip. So yeah, we charged up the box at the Pilot gas station that was next door. We basically chilled there for a couple hours while it charged. A couple of people came up and gave us food. I got a big ass jar of crunchy peanut butter. I love peanut butter, so that was awesome. He gave us some crackers, some water, stuff like that, some apples, bananas. And there was a couple people that were just giving us stuff, and the whole time, like, we never asked for anything. We hitchhiked a few times. We were trying to get rides, especially later on in the desert sections and leaving Junction. But pretty much that's the only thing we ever asked for. People were just wanting to give us things because I guess they saw us and what we represented and felt either in their hearts they wanted to do it or for whatever reason. So we were accepting whatever donations and gifts people were offering. You know, it was my first experience seeing trail magic, even on the first official day of the trail when we were walking towards Kerrville from Comfort. This car pulls up, and this young guy, younger than us, probably early 20s, asked us what we were up to, if we were homeless. We told him we were through hiking. We actually had to leave Texas to get to New Mexico to start the through hike, but we were headed up to Canada was the main goal. And he gave us, I think he gave us some grapes and waters and stuff. He actually came back, saw us like 2 hours later up the road on the same exact road, and stopped and gave us I think $20. He was holding out a 10, and then he had another 10 in his hand. He's like, you know what, here you go. He was real cool, gave us $20 and some food and stuff. And then like 15 minutes after that, this older couple pulls up and gives us a bunch of water and some more snacks. So we were set from like day one with trail magic. Like, it was not an option even amongst, you know, COVID-19 going on. And that was like basically the beginning of the escalation of everything here in Texas, because things had just started shutting down and the panic buying had already been going on for 3 weeks at that time. So things were kind of at that point where they were about to escalate even more. And surprisingly, people were still being real grateful. Anyways, back to the story. So all in all, we hang out in Junction till about 4 in the afternoon that day. We leave Junction, headed towards the next small place was Roosevelt. That's the closest town we got to before we hitchhiked into El Paso. We camped out, and then in the morning we got up extra early, and it was super foggy. It was supposed to rain, but thankfully it was just foggy and just mist. So we were walking in that, and we stopped off like a mile away from the little gas station that opened up in Roosevelt. It opened up at like 9 in the morning, and it was like 8:30. So we were just kind of taking our time on our way up there, and we were hitchhiking a little bit while we were taking a smoke break. And surprisingly, this kid pulls up on his way to El Paso, and that was kind of like our goal, was like, if we can get to El Paso, we'll be golden, because then we're pretty much out of Texas. Like, to put it into perspective for people who have never been to Texas, basically from San Antonio to El Paso, there's nothing. There's small towns like, there's small towns like Kerrville and things like that along the way, Segovia Junction, all that stuff, but they're tiny. They have a couple little tiny things. They have a couple little gas stations, stuff like that, maybe a restaurant or two, but there's not very much in between here and there. Once you leave Junction, there's even more nothing on your way to El Paso, because then you're out of the hill country in the next couple of hours worth of driving and into the desert. We fortunately didn't have to walk through that section because we got picked up by the gentleman who was going to school in El Paso, and his car was loaded with stuff. Originally, he just pulled over asking if we needed some food and water. He hooked us up, gave us some trail mix, some snacks, water, all that stuff. And his car was loaded up with all his things because he was moving there for college, and still he offered us a ride if we wanted to try and squeeze in. So if you watch the video, I'm in the back seat with Naudis on my lap. Naudis is gigantic. I don't know how much he weighs. Last time I weighed him was when he was about 4 years old, and he was like 95 pounds. He's 8 now, and a little bit more muscular and bulky than he was back then. So I'm guessing at least 110, something like that. And we're sitting in the back seat with him on my lap, I'm wearing all my warm stuff because it was a little chilly and misty that morning, so I had my like raincoat on and all that stuff. And next to me, there's like a wheel from a bike, and next to me is the bike, so like the chain and everything is right here in my face, and Nautilus's butt's like up against it, so I'm jamming my hand in between it and getting grease all over my jacket and all over my hand, trying not to let it make his hindquarters feel too uncomfortable while he's sitting there. And then I start getting hot because he's on top of me, you know, this 100-degree, 100-pound furry beast on top of me in the back seat of this tiny little Hyundai car. And we rode the way there. The guy turned on the AC, rolled down the windows a little bit, so it was kind of tolerable. It was still pretty hot in my opinion because I was just wearing so much clothes and I had this body on top of me, this massive heat. So it was like a 4.5 hour drive from where we were at, right outside of Roosevelt, Texas, to El Paso, the Rincon area, right by the border of New Mexico, like maybe 2-3 miles from the border. We decided to hang out in El Paso for a few days because we were waiting on our boss, Justin's dad. We were waiting on our boss to send us our paycheck that he had owed us from like 3 weeks before, and we were hoping that he was going to be able to send it to us Walmart to Walmart while we were there, and he ended up sending us $200 out of the over $1,000 that he owed us, split between us. So $200 split between two people and a 100-pound dog, you know, it got us through. Honestly, it was great for what it was, but it was just disappointing that we still didn't get. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. So we hung out there for a couple days. I think it was like 2.5 days that we were in El Paso, maybe 3. I can't remember. You'll have to go back and watch my videos. I'll link them up here. We're camping out under this walkway at this park. We're camping out basically in a water drainage ditch under a walkway for this park, and we camped there for the couple of days that we were in El Paso, and we would just go hang out at the Walmart all day and then come back before the sunset and set up camp and relax. So while we're sitting here at this barbecue joint for the couple of days that we were there, these people just keep coming up to us left and right. People give us clothing, food, water. I acquired so much dog food, and it was nice, kind of annoying at the same time because I had just bought a fresh bag. When I started off, my base weight, this was my weight, this was my pack's weight with everything in it minus water. So it had my food and it had Nautilus's food in there. The only thing that was not in this pack was water when I weighed it, and it was 42 pounds on the dot. I left with a 6-pound bag, maybe 2.5, 3 pounds left over from another 6-pound bag, and then I had 3 1-pound bags stuffed inside of my pack. So I left with quite a bit of dog food in there. And by the time we were in El Paso, I had basically dwindled that down to maybe 3 or 4 days worth of food for Nautilus's. And I decided once I had gotten some money in El Paso, I was gonna buy a nice sized bag of dog food. So I go in, I look around, I find one that's kind of decent, not the worst food that they had there, but not what I normally would feed him, and I buy it. And maybe 30 minutes later, this lady comes up and gives me a bag of dog food that was like maybe 6-8 pounds, like this big. And I'm like, okay, awesome, more dog food, you know, it's better than what I have. It'll be a little heavier, but you know what, it's cool, thank you. And she also gave us some other food and stuff, so we got to eat ourselves. This gentleman pulls up and gives us some warm biscuits and gravy like he had just eaten at Cracker Barrel and driven by as he was leaving with his leftovers. And we both got to eat, myself and Justin got to eat biscuits and gravy that morning. So that was awesome. Um, and then within like another hour, this other lady pulls up and gives us some more food and gives us about a quarter of a bag of dog food, but it was a big bag, so there was like this much in the bottom, which was about equal to one of those 6-pound bags that I had started with. So now I have a 6-pound bag, another 5 or 6 pound bag, and then roughly 5 or 6 pounds again. So let's just say 15 pounds of dog food plus the 3 days worth of food, plus the 3 days worth of food that he had already in my pack. So I'm just stocked with food at this point. I didn't need anything else. I was pretty much at that point like, please, nobody give me any more stuff. Like, I'm good. Thank you all for the magic. Thank you all for the awesome things that y'all are giving us. It's awesome and all, but I can't carry anymore. So I think the second day we pretty much decided we needed to get out of there because people are just being way too nice. This awesome dude Wizzy came up. I got to talk to him for a couple hours while Justin did his laundry up the road, and he sat there and talked to me. He bought me some Wendy's. He bought me a double stack and a Sprite, and it was awesome. I got to sit there under the bridge that night and eat it while smoking a bowl and drinking a 6-pack with Justin, and it was just an awesome night. I ended up getting a little drunk that night because we had been walking in the heat for days, not eating that much, not drinking that much, and all of a sudden I drank 3 beers, and I was feeling pretty good that night. So we leave El Paso once we're stocked up, and so we leave the Walmart, we go camp out, we drink the beer, we eat the food, we watch a movie, all that stuff, smoke out, and go to sleep. The next morning we wake up and we're like, all right, we got to get out of here now, so let's go charge up the box. So we stopped at that Walgreens and charged up my box real quick. It was at like 37%, so we decided to stop there, charge it up. It took like 3 hours to get to 100%, but we knew that once we got into New Mexico, we were pretty much, going to be in the desert for a while. So we charge up the box, we get walking down the road, sun sets, we walk into New Mexico, and within like 2-3 miles of getting into New Mexico, we find a nice field that it looked like they were farming, but it was just weeds. Like, it looked like it hadn't been tilled up in a while, and I didn't see anything like around that indicated that they were trying. So we camped out in the back. We camped out in the back corner of what looked like abandoned farm. It was basically just a dirt field with weeds growing in it and a little bit of tilled up spots where it looked like they had tried to plant stuff at one time. We camped out there, woke up in the morning. Justin hiked back towards the El Paso, New Mexico border right there and tried to find us some breakfast in the morning. He ended up buying some like breakfast croissants from the gas station and then some soda. So sat there and ate that, drank the sodas, and then got packed up and started our walk into New Mexico. And this is where things got exciting. This is basically what I would call the downfall of the trip. I'm missing the trail right now. I wish I didn't leave, but so this is basically what I would say was the subtle downslide and eventual quitting of the Continental Divide pursuit for myself and Nadas was when we got into New Mexico. Originally, beforehand, we had talked about traveling up I-10 and going through Las Cruces, because we would be in more of a developed area, in more of a greener area where there's water and people and stuff like that, and towns along the way, and then heading west in New Mexico, basically to Lordsburg, and then down from there. Now, I don't know if it was just because we were so excited because things have been going great, or if we had just like felt that confident at the point, but we decided to go down the road we had talked about previously not going down, because it's a small highway, Highway 9, that leads from what was it? It's a small highway that leads basically from the edge of New Mexico-Texas border all the way through to Columbus, and then eventually Hachita. And Hachita was the goal if we went that way, because then we can just cut south to Crazy Cook. Now, when we got on this road, we had known that, you know, it's going to be maybe 30 plus miles to the next anything, because we didn't have good service out there. We couldn't really tell what was, if the next town was Arena or if it was Columbus or what was going on with that. It ended up being Columbus, about 70 miles from the start of Highway 9. And once we found this out, we had already been on that road for 3.5, 4 days, and it wasn't that bad. When we hiked into the desert, we had stocked up on water. This lady had pulled up to us at the Walgreens and given us another gallon of water. So now I'm carrying 5 gallons of water on my pack, along with the 2 liters of water. And Justin actually took 1 of the gallons from me so that I could just carry the 4. So out of El Paso, through New Mexico, into the desert, we had quite a bit of water. And I don't know if y'all knew this, 5 gallons of water weighs over 40 pounds. So my weight when I left, minus water, was 42 pounds. Add the 2 liters of water when I started, and maybe, you know, 40, let's call it 45 pounds just to put it even. So 45 pounds plus the 4 gallons. So I think it's like 8.4 or something like that pounds per gallon of water. So you do the math. I mean, I'm carrying, plus the dog food, plus an extra pair of clothes that this lady gave me, plus extra snacks, extra camping food that I purchased at Walmart. I had bought a trekking pole from the Walmart, so I added on quite a bit of weight. I'm pushing upwards of 80, 85 pounds at this point, walking into the desert, and it was tough. It was hurting, you know. We were walking a lot slower. We were pushing 10, 15 mile days pretty easily, starting off, not being people who do this on a very average basis, you know. And so, you know, I'm walking out into the desert with upwards of 80, 85 pounds on my back, starting off with 42 to 45, and it was tough. Like, I couldn't even get the damn thing on by myself. I had to either prop it up onto something and then squeeze my way into it and then stand up, or set it on a curb and sit on the floor and have my buddy pick me up. Like, it was heavy, but we had to carry water, you know. We knew we were going to be in the desert. So we ended up running out of water pretty much the 3rd day. Nobody was stopping. We were trying to hitchhike off that godforsaken highway every minute that we were on it, and nobody was stopping. Go figure, we're, you know, a mile to 2,000 feet away from the border of Mexico, the border wall, which is 36 to, I think it's the border wall, which is, I believe, 35, 36 feet tall. And there's nothing but truck drivers and border patrol driving by us, because there's nothing out there. Nobody goes out that way. There was one border patrol officer the entire time that stopped and checked on us. And he basically asked us, you know, if we were all right, if we needed anything. My buddy Justin said, you know, if you got water, if you can give us a ride. well, I don't got any water on me, and kind of, you know, scratched his head and ignored the whole ride question. And he was like, well, y'all be safe out here, you know. It's a pretty high traffic area for immigrants, so if you see anyone, just be careful. And it's like, you know, whatever. Like, y'all aren't out here, you know, y'all aren't out here to help us. You're out here to do your job. So if you're not going to help, just get going. You know, trying to be respectful and everything, but truthfully, like, y'all have seen us out here for 3 days. Y'all have been driving by us day after day and seeing us out here hitching, you know, with jugs of water and our dog and all that stuff. And you stop on the 3rd day and pretty much can't help us, so why even stop? Anyways, so we hiked, how many miles was it? We were on this road, like I said, for 4 days. On the 3rd day, we finally got some water and a ride. That was the day we ran out of water. I ended up backtracking about 5 miles to a cow tank that I had seen to try and filter out some water. I don't know if my filter was working because it had busted the day before, but I was still trying to use it, you know, and I filled up 3 gallons of that cow tank water, and I filtered it through each time 3 times. I would do it into a jug and then filter it from that jug into another jug and filter it from that jug into another jug, and then just do that, trying to get the cleanest, because it was coming out still smelling like cow water and looking like cow water other than having stuff floating in it. It was the color. And I was thirsty and drank it. I ended up not having any issues, either because I have a gut of steel or because it was filtered, or I don't know. But thankfully, I did not die or shit my brains out for that. So I backtracked the 5 miles. I got the 3 gallons. I just carried the gallons and my filter and my phone. That was all I took with me. Left my pack at Nadas up the road with Justin. He stood there and kept trying to hitchhike for us and get water and stuff. Someone finally stopped and gave him some water, and then right when I got back from someone stopped and gave him some water, and then someone also stopped and dropped some waters in the middle of the road for us, which I ran up and grabbed. So we ended up getting a couple bottles of nicer water. But then after that, we got picked up finally. So we left that spot once I hiked the 5 miles back to him. A couple hours had passed, and I get back. I had already drank 1 of the gallons because I had kind of jogged and walked trying to get there and back as quickly as possible. So I was thirsty and ended up having 2 gallons left over when I got back. Tried to filter it 1 more time, still didn't come out good. So at this point, I was just like kind of pissed off, like, man, like, what the hell? Why is this filter not working? And I just gave up at that point. I was like, you know, I guess I gotta drink this water, so I'm just gonna keep drinking it. I already drank a gallon and it hasn't messed up my stomach yet, so let's just keep on going. So we leave, we start walking, and within maybe 6 or 7 miles of leaving that spot, finally this guy pulls over. And it's kind of ironic and hilarious. I don't know. It's kind of hilarious to me because at this point I'm so agitated because the Border Patrol, you know, Nadas is tired, so I'm having to walk a little slower to go his pace. The whole water situation was kind of screwed up, you know. We're on this forsaken road for 4 days. Like, at this point I'm just like getting pissed off, and I'm trying to keep my cool and everything, but cars are driving by, and you know, finally this Audi drives by, and I kind of sarcastically just like waved at him all goofy like this, and he went like that and kept driving, and like 10 minutes later he comes pulling back up, and I was like, oh man. I was like, wait a second, is this dude trying to give us a ride? This dude's in an Audi, and it was a four-door Audi, but straight up, like, it's just crazy the cars that people who did pick us up in. There was only one truck that ever picked us up, and that was the guy that picked us up in near Mountain Home. He put us in the back of the truck. The other one was the lady and her mom was a 4-door sedan. The kid to El Paso was a 4-door Hyundai, and then this time around it was a 4-door sedan Audi. So we get up to him and he's like, y'all need a ride? Like, I can give y'all a ride, not very far because I'm kind of working right now, but just hop in and we'll talk about it. So I'm like, cool. And he's like, you know, just as long as y'all aren't gonna kill me or anything. So at that point I'm just kind of like, all right, like, I have my pistol, I'm gonna put it in my backpack so that you're more comfortable, but I'm letting you know that I do have it on me. And he's like, oh no, you're cool. And so I put it in my backpack, we hop in, Nadas is sitting on my lap in the back seat of the Audi with my pack next to me, and then like his lunchbox and hard hat, and Justin's in the front passenger seat with his pack, and he drives us like 10 miles up the road to his job site, lets us out, and then runs his car in, parks it, and gets his work truck, which is like a big old F650 flatbed, pulls out in his work truck and tells me to hop in. So we get in there and he drives us like maybe another 5 to 10 miles up the road. The gentleman had given us some waters that he had in his truck, so we had like 5 water bottles and the cow water still, and then Justin had a little bit of water left over in his thermos. We got dropped off right outside of Columbus, New Mexico. We find our camping spot within the next few miles of hiking, and we set up. I was kind of upset that I just had cow water and a few bottles of water that the gentleman that given us a ride had given us, and I wanted more water than that to start the next day off with. So I was going to jog the 8 miles into Columbus and then jog back and probably get back hopefully like before 3 or 4 in the morning, so I can still get a few hours of sleep, wake up, make breakfast, and have a nice rejuvenated day. I jogged maybe 2 miles up the road, so I look on my map and look for the closest gas station or grocery store where I can get some water and a pack of cigarettes, because at this point I'm out of cigarettes. I'm just drinking cow water, and I'm camping out in the desert for 4 days. So I wanted those. So I look on the map. This is the funny part right here, because I had just jogged these 2 miles, finally got the service, look on the map, see the first place, it's a grocery store. So I'm like, okay, their hours say that they're closed. Maybe it's just a little mom and pop grocery store. The next place is like a few blocks down, and it's a gas station. I look at their time and it says closes at 8. I look at the time, it's 8:15. So I'm like, huh, that's weird that they close so early. Let me call them. So I call them. Sure enough, everyone in town closed at 7 or 8 o'clock or something like that. It was ridiculous. So I'm bummed. I turn around. I don't even want to jog back. I just walk back the whole time, just like, just cussing at myself and kicking rocks and upset that I didn't get my stogies. Like, that was the thing. I wanted the stogies. I could go with the cow water until we get into town the next morning, but I wanted to have a couple of cigarettes for that night. We had basically not had any bud since we got on Highway 9 because we had thought we were going to go through a border checkpoint. Turns out it was only a border patrol station, and none of them were even interested in us, probably because we're 2 white guys with backpacking gear, and they're not looking for that. Okay. So I finally get back into camp. I decide, I'm just gonna cook some dinner real quick with some of the cow water and go to sleep. I cook the dinner, I eat it. I had like 1 bar on my phone if I stood right next to the highway, so I would go over there and try and work on videos, and then call my girlfriend. And I talked on the phone with her for a little bit, decided, all right, I'm just done with today. I'm going to sleep, you know. Nadas was doing pretty good at this point. It was just the water situation, you know. I wouldn't have to carry that much water if it was me. If it was just me by myself, I can survive without the water on that road for 4 or 5 days, you know. If I would have only had one bottle of water, I could have been fine, you know. The issue is he needs a gallon or two of water every couple of hours, it seems like. And it's like, damn, dude, I can't carry that much. like I said, carrying 5 gallons is over 40 pounds. I was only carrying 4 gallons and 2 liters because my buddy carried one of the other gallons, but still heavy. And that's on top of my pack, you know. That's not like me carrying without my pack. So Nadas, like I said, Nadas was doing pretty good. He was tired, but at this point I had found a nice rhythm for walking with him. I had him walking in a nice spot where he wasn't tearing up his feet, and I had already put the socks on his feet, which were holding up pretty good. So his feet had already healed from getting torn up the first couple of days, and this was like a week and a half, 2 weeks later or something like that. So I was pretty excited about that, but it was still like, we're gonna be in the desert. Like, we're getting to Columbus, yeah, and we can stock up on water, and we can take zeros there, and we can hang out and be rejuvenated and leave from there. But then I'm gonna be in the desert from Columbus to the boot heel of New Mexico, which was, I believe, another like 30 or 40 miles or something like that. And then from the boot heel, I believe it's exactly 20 miles to Crazy Cook. So it would have been, who knows, like maybe 3 more days at the rate we were walking, probably more. And the chances of getting a ride, 0. There's not going to be anybody out there. We're still going to be along the border. There's still going to be border patrol. So at this point, you know, we're walking into Columbus. We're about 3 miles out, and I'm still just like in my head, just aggravated, agitated, angry, like. So we're walking into Columbus, and I'm constantly thinking about this, and I'm like, even if we get a ride, you know, a little bit further, you know, it still wouldn't be worth it, because once I get to Crazy Cook, it's 85 miles to Lordsburg. There might be some water at the cow tanks and the reserves and stuff out there. If I was super, super lucky, there might be someone who left some at the catches, but I didn't want to sit there and bank on that water being there. If I didn't have the water to take that far, which I knew I wasn't going to, there's no way I'm going to be able to have water to last that entire journey. If I'm not going to have that water available for Nadas, then what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. We're not stupid, you know. The dog is going to die. I'm not going to have a dead dog after 8 years on my hands because I made a stupid choice. Selfishly, you know. Had nothing to do with COVID. I could care less, honestly, what everyone thought about me going on to trail during this COVID crisis. I wasn't planning on doing resupplies. I didn't have money. I didn't leave with money. I didn't plan on stopping and having a steak like a lot of y'all people do. And I don't hate on y'all people. I love steak as well. I like to have steaks in my normal life. I like to indulge and go out and stuff like that every once in a while as well. But my point of being on the trip was survival and working on my skills, along with working on everything in here and figuring out, you know, a lot of things that I've been needing to put together. And don't get me wrong, I did. I learned a lot on this journey. So I'm thinking about this stuff, and we get 3 miles from town, and I kind of blew up at Justin, and I had apologized for it, you know, but it was just like, I was annoyed, I was hot, I was thirsty, like, Nadas was getting on my nerves because he whines, and then, you know, we're whining because we don't have the things that we need, and we're tired, and we can't wait to get to town, so we're just kind of, you know, passively bitching. And then when we stop, Justin's complaining about Naudis's whining, and I kind of blew up at him about the fact that he was complaining about Naudis's whining, and he decided to take off walking a little bit quicker. So I figured he was a little upset, or just didn't appreciate the way that I had spoken to him, which I can understand. So he walked off, and a few minutes later I decided to get up and finish my break and keep walking. We got about, like I said, 3 miles away from town, and a gentleman and his son picked us up in the back of their truck, and they had a fifth wheel horse trailer on there as well. So we just hopped in the bed of the truck, and he drove us to the grocery store in Columbus. We're in the back of the truck. I apologize to Justin, and we get to the store. We go in one at a time because of the whole Naudis situation. You know, I can't just leave them tied up out there, especially in the desert. But while Justin is getting his stuff, the gentleman's, you know, saying he could give us a ride a little bit further if we needed, down to the next town in Cheetah, and then we can hike down from there. And it sounded like a good plan, but originally we had talked about taking a few zeros in Columbus to restock on water and just hydrate ourselves for a few days and relax, because we had been stuck on that highway for 4 days. So it sounded like a good deal, you know, but I'm sitting there thinking about all this other stuff. So I respectfully declined. I told them, you know, this is probably going to be the end of the road for me and Naudis, because A, you know, the water situation. B, I had planned on taking a few zeros here anyways, and, you know, this just seems like a good spot to turn around to get him back home, at least. So it was hard, you know, it was tough. It was tough saying goodbye to Justin and watching him go on to continue the trail. He made it onto the trail. He made it up to Silver City before deciding that he was going to return home as well. He had gotten a bus ticket, got home, I believe, a day or two before I did. I decided to hang out at that grocery store, and from there I stayed with a gentleman for a few days, and then I hiked out of Columbus 8 miles before hitchhiking up to Deming and hanging out there for a day. Finally got access to my tax return money over my phone. Finally was able to use Apple Pay with it and buy a few things from the store. So I was grateful about that. I stopped at a few stores, got a few things, got cigarettes, got some more food and water and stuff like that, and then made a bold decision after talking on the phone with my mom to get a Motel 6 room and rent a U-Haul truck and basically burn U-Haul, saying that I'm gonna take the truck one way to El Paso, but instead drive it to San Antonio, which is 500 more miles, something like that. So, you know, it's bad karma on my end, but what do you do in times, you know? I could have hiked back, I could have done all that stuff and tried to hitchhike back, but at this point it was just like I had some clarifications and I had some realizations from spending a few days in Columbus and talking to a lot of different people and, you know, hearing different things and seeing things from different perspectives, stuff like that. I was content with the fact that I needed to get home and continue my life here, and that there was a different way that I had to go about my journey of the thru hike. So I still plan to thru hike. I plan to thru hike solo, and I plan to fast pack thru hike. If I was going the pace with Naudis that I was going for the entire journey of the Continental Divide Trail, it would have taken me probably a year and a half total. It would have taken me probably about 6 to 7 months total to hike to Canada, and then I don't know what I would do about getting back. I had planned on yo-yoing back and hitchhiking and stuff like that, but it just, it wasn't the right, it just wasn't my hike, you know. It was a hike, it was a good experience, and I ended up throwing together all of the times that we walked versus hitchhiking and whatnot, and all of the time spent progressing towards the goal. Me personally, I walked 129 miles. I'm not sure how far Justin walked, because after Columbus, of course, he ended up getting dropped off on trail and walking up to Lordsburg and Silver City. So I'm not sure exactly how much he did, but that was my total mileage, myself and Nadas. Oh no, I'm sorry, I forgot to add the 10 miles from getting the cow water. So 139 miles. So let's call it 140 even. 140 miles on the road within 2.5 weeks basically. And then I got the motel room, rented the U-Haul the next morning, and hauled ass, spent the rest of my money getting gas 4 different times to get back to San Antonio. Dropped the truck off at my old job, because I used to work at it was a full service auto mechanic and gas station, but we also did U-Hauls there. So I worked there for 7 years, and I basically decided, you know, I'm gonna leave them a little note letting them know that I'm dropping the truck off basically on an empty tank, with wrong destination, which they charge a fee for that. They charge $30-something for fuel service plus $5 per gallon, and then they charge the wrong destination fee, and then they charge for every mile that I went over. Now this was like 500 and something miles over where I was supposed to take it to El Paso, so I owed them a little bit of money, and there was no money on the card because, as I said, I had spent it on gas getting back. So I left my coworkers a note and texted them and all that stuff when I got home. But that was the end of my journey. I have been home for, I'm not even sure how long now, because I really don't pay attention to the days that much ever since I haven't been working. I basically just kind of hang out, sit around and eat, and try and get a little exercise. We went out hiking a couple times this week. We went out and did a few different trails in San Antonio around the Greenbelt, and stayed out for a few hours, got some sun, and it was pretty nice. So still out there doing it, still got new stuff coming, but stay tuned for my announcement of my next plans. I also want to do a shout out to a fellow YouTuber hiker guy, one of my homies on here. Check him out. Dude is doing a good thing for this world, and he has his heart in the right place, and y'all should really see the work that he's doing. Thank you all for your likes, comments. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I will answer you pretty much immediately, because I'm on my phone all the time. And thank you all for subscribing. If you're not subscribed, please hit the button, hit the bell if you want future notifications, and thank you for watching my channel, Yakobako. Peace out. Perfect timing too, because I got to go. No. No.